You have the root of the key, or you have the home bass, right? And then you have literally everything else. So it's literally just home is the release point, and then everything else is tension. You have all these different options of tension, but eventually you always full circle back home. So it's just the principle of tension and release. That's why I call it the binary tonality system. Dude, all right, to literally properly reverse engineer this thing, we're gonna have to go back in time to before I finished producing that riff, so you can literally see all of my production and composition decisions in real time, right? And you're gonna wanna stay to the end of the video because I'm literally about to smash the paradigm violently, okay? You're gonna wanna get in on this, right? This is like a new cutting edge thing I'm about to share with you. So stick around to the end of the video, dude, and I'll see you in the past. All right, so let's look at what we've got so far, okay? We've got two riffs, both based on 33 beat cycles, but the application of the 33 beat cycle is slightly different in Riff A than it is in Riff B. So let's just look at Riff A really quickly, follow along with the MIDI. Sick, dude. Okay, so what's going on here? We've got a 33 beat cycle here represented by this geometric pattern that you see, right? That geometric pattern repeats identically 3 times. Now on the 4th time, it's truncated to stay in 4/4. So we have 3 33 beat cycles with a truncation on the 4th, right? So what's going on with these beat cycles is that they are incrementally displaced every time they start again. So the first one, as you can see, it starts right on the downbeat, right? The second one starts 1/16th note after the downbeat. The third one starts 2/16th notes after the downbeat, and our truncated one starts 3/16th notes after the downbeat. So that incremental displacement is facilitating our counterintuitive syncopation. Now, to really drive home the point of the beat cycle, we contrast it with this top layer symmetrical melody. So the thing about the symmetrical melody is it is highlighting the 4/4 element, right? So the 4/4 element juxtaposed with the 33 beat cycle is the point of the whole operation. So we need to draw attention to the 4/4, and we can always do that by writing a symmetrical melody that is aspected against the 33 beat cycle. What do I mean by aspecting? I mean that as the 33 beat cycle is incrementally displaced, it is hitting in different locations against the symmetrical melody. And that is a sick effect. That's like the point of everything we're doing here compositionally. Look at how the riff starts on the downbeat on that first repetition of the symmetrical melody. Then we look at the second repetition of the symmetrical melody and we see the riff starting 2 16th notes later. And that is the effect that we're going for. It's aspecting the melody. It's showing a new aspect of the melody, okay? So our core components are just symmetrical melody and the 33 beat cycle, and we're getting a ton of bang for our buck with just those 2 pieces of material. Okay, so now let's look at our other riff, and we'll quickly listen to that just to refresh you. What's going on here? It's just so sick, dude. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, what we've done is we've set up a macro variation. Okay, what that means is in this 33 beat cycle riff, we have made the 33 beat cycle happen only 2 full times with a truncation on the third. So that's fundamentally contrasting our first riff, where the beat cycle happens 3 full times with a truncation on the fourth. So what effect does this have? This changes the entire macro phrasing of the riff. And it's a very compelling variation because it sets up an opportunity for our second riff to repeat because it's shorter. It's literally 6 measures of 4/4 as opposed to 8 measures of 4/4. So what I think makes sense here is that on the first time of that new riff, we don't have the melody in, but then we repeat the riff, and on that repeat, we introduce the symmetrical melody. So I'm just gonna write this like really quickly because the whole thing here, you don't wanna overthink this stuff. You just wanna kind of go with what's obvious. So I'm gonna start that new symmetrical melody on F, because the thing about that new riff is that it's all about how the 5th goes up a half step to the flatted 6th. So I feel like in the melody, we can use that as kind of our guiding principle. So that means that if we start on the 5th, let's go up to the flatted 6th in the melody and see if everything becomes clear after that. It does. It just becomes clear. This is what always happens. And there you go. So there you go. Look at this. This is probably perfect. Like pyramids emerging out of the sky, right? But guess what? We still need 2 more notes because our phrasing is 6, not 4. So we have 4 notes so far. We need 2 more to complete that phrasing that's based on 3s and 6s, right? So I hear it just descending right here. I hear it hitting up that minor third. If you remember from the last video, our motif is really based on major third, minor third, juxtaposers, right? And so then I think it just probably resolves to the root at the end. That would be my guess here. Yeah, that is absolutely devastating to me. That literally sounds like pyramid enlightenment, and that's what I want all my music to sound like. So I freaking love it. Okay, now that we literally have all of the components we need, we can literally start to produce this track with real instruments. So let's do that. Low octave. High octave, pyramid enlightening melody, and what I like to call some motor oil toothbrush over the second riff. All right, so now that I have all those human elements, the arrangement starts to reveal itself, okay? So like one thing I noticed when I was recording those parts was how Riff B flows insanely perfectly into Riff A, right? Like invert it, right? So this is basically what I noticed is that Riff B should just go into this fat Riff A groove coming out of Pyramid Enlightenment melody, right? So listen to that and you'll see what I mean. You know what I mean, dude? It's just too sick. It's like end up in the gutter. You know what I mean? I love it, right? So then that sets up an obvious opportunity for the intro, which is like literally just get rid of the bass on the intro. The first time you get to hear the OG 33 beat cycle riff is after you hear the Pyramid Enlightenment melody. That is just going to be the golden ticket, son. So then we kind of need to fill out the intro, right? The intro is essentially about to write itself, but now since that bass is taken away, there's a missing element, basically a counterpoint melody. We kind of still want that. So I think I'm going to write this on a synthesizer. Going to use this synth called Edgy Cycles, dude. So here's the thing. I need to write a counter melody here, and I think I'm going to write it symmetrically, but at twice the speed as the original symmetrical melody, dude. You'll see, like, these are just techniques you learn along the way. I'm just giving you my secrets, and you'll see how good this is in a second. Like, I already hear it in my head. Watch this. So it's literally just using the same motif of that original symmetrical melody, but just twice as fast. Like this. This is what I mean by twice as fast. That original symmetrical melody is whole notes, so this is based on half notes. So see if this sounds like the way it should sound. You hear that, dude? That just fills it out so perfectly. I'll actually turn it up a little bit, but that already is exactly what I'm talking about, right? And I'll actually just keep going here. Right? Look at this, is the same notes as the original symmetrical melody, just twice as fast, getting some like macro micro layers going on here. So listen to that. You hear it, dude. You literally hear it. We all know what it already is. That's the one. Check this out, dude. Dynamite, dude. Absolute freaking dynamite. So I'm going to repeat that, right? Because that gets to happen again. But on the first time, I'm just going to do a fade in, dude. It's going to creep in just like this, dude. Use some automation. Just going to let that creep in. And then there's only one other element that's missing. I need to change the drum texture. And I already set myself up to do that. I'm just going to change those drums to a different track that has the step effects plugin. And you'll see why right now that's flawless. That wah pedal guitar. Okay, yeah, there's one thing missing though. I literally need to set up that big drop. That drop needs to hit even harder. So I'm gonna do that over here on the drums. And I'm just gonna kind of do like really basic thing right here. And it may or may not work. I don't know. Something like that, and then something like that. See if that's it. See what I'm saying? I think that was literally all that's missing. Okay, now let's just hear the end of that intro with our new drum fill to set up Riff B. See if that fits. Yeah, dude. I think that's literally perfect. All right, so this is literally where the paradigm gets torn to absolute smithereens, because what I'm about to share with you is truly on the cutting edge of music as we know it, okay? This is about improvising over beat cycles. So I'm guessing you might have already considered that that's an extremely difficult thing to do for a lot of reasons, but one of those reasons is because of how the harmonic rhythm is displaced, right? So just like the 33 beat cycle is incrementally displaced against the 4/4 backbeat, well, the harmonic implications of that beat cycle are also displaced against the backbeat. So if you were to think of this like the typical jazz musician, your head would explode, right? It's like there's no precedent for doing this type of thing, right? Because your objective as a jazz improviser is to outline harmony as it passes through a form, right? But the way that the harmony passes through a form in beat cycles is like nothing we've ever seen in history, right? Like even the most complex jazz tunes, it's like chord on beat 1, chord on beat 3, right? That's the harmonic rhythm. Even if those chords are insanely complex, it doesn't really matter. The harmonic rhythm is the same. As soon as you morph the harmonic rhythm incrementally, it's like, what are you doing? Like it's just a different world altogether. You really can't compare the thing. So I believe I've come up with the system for improvising over beat cycles, and it subverts the difficulty of the incrementally displaced harmonic rhythm. And guess how you subvert it, dude? No surprise. It's all about the symmetrical melody and relying on the principle of aspecting. So in the same way that the jazz improviser is anchored to the chord changes of a song, this approach is about anchoring to the symmetrical melody and letting the displacement of the beat cycle reharmonize or reveal new aspects of that melody that are increasingly more dissonant, right? As the riff is displaced against the melody, you have increasing dissonance before it all resolves back to one, where the beat cycle finally aligns with the symmetrical melody, right? So it's displaced, it's displaced, it's displaced, and then finally it returns. So you have like building, tension, building, and then all that tension is released. And that aligns with the way that I'm harmonically thinking about all this music, right? Like, as you probably figured out, like none of this composition is based on functional harmony, right? Instead, it's more based on like what I would like to call binary harmony, okay? And binary harmony is really just you have the root of the key or you have the home bass, right? And then you have literally everything else. So it's literally just home is the release point, and then everything else is tension. You have all these different options of tension, but eventually you always full circle back home. So it's just the principle of tension and release. That's why I call it the binary tonality system. And in those riffs in this song, that's all what it is. It's like very prominent, obvious root of the key, and then all of the intervals just kind of juxtaposing that root. Like that's the Meshuggah principle. Like that's just like the non-functional harmonic way of composing. So I just apply that exact philosophy to the symmetrical melody improvisation. And as long as I'm just anchored to the symmetrical melody, then all is good, right? I'm just going to be building up tension until it finally releases, right? So how do I anchor, how do I improvise anchored to the symmetrical melody? Well, this is the thing, right? This is like, you can be getting in on the ground floor of this, right? This is what I'm showing my students. This is the shit right here, okay? It's like this, right? So our symmetrical melody, right? Right? This whole thing. Those 4 notes, right? Each one of those 4 notes, I treat it as a standalone key. I can do any mode, any whatever, right? I'm just gonna keep it to geometry, right? And I'm gonna steal something straight out of the book of Alan Holdsworth, which is like the classic shape, right? Look at this, right? So B flat, right? When the symmetrical melody is on B flat, I'm just thinking about this shape here. False fingering the B flat, dude. And then like, I'll show you a few more notes, but I mean, I'm not gonna get too complex into this. This is like, hit me up for lessons if you wanna go down this rabbit hole. But really, like, I'm just thinking about maybe a little bit more. Right? That's all when the symmetrical melody is on B flat. When the symmetrical melody goes to D, I could literally just do the exact same thing, parallelisms. And then it descends. And then finishes. Back to home base, right? So I'm going to show you some examples of that in context.
that you understand what I'm doing, dude, I hope that enlightening feeling is just like, you should be literally losing your mind right now. And so this is going to be the perfect opportunity to, like, you know, support the channel, buy the Gas Station album, hit me up for lessons. Instagram is probably good for that if you want to DM me, but literally just, man, buy the album, support this content, because I'm going to be making another huge, like, earth-shattering announcement, like, pretty soon in the next few days. And you're going to want to pay attention to that. It has everything to do with proliferating these philosophies, right? The beat cycle philosophies, the aspecting philosophies, the improvisation over beat cycle philosophies. Like, dude, like, no one else is talking about this stuff. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep creating beat cycle tracks. That's part of what the next announcement is. So pay attention, subscribe, like the video, comment, buy the freaking album, and you can literally even hit me up for lessons, and we can untangle this stuff all the way. So do it!